The storm had no mercy that night. Wind rattled the windows. Rain slashed across the Bitter Creek plains like knives, and Samuel Hayes thought he'd spend another evening alone with nothing but the crackle of the fire for company. But then, 3 heavy knocks thundered against the barn door. Not the timid tap of a neighbor. Number. This was urgent. Desperate. Samuel grabbed his lantern, boots crunching on the wooden floor. When he pulled the door open, his heart jolted. Standing there was a woman, soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her face, her eyes wild with fear. In her trembling arms, she clutched a burlap sack as if it held her very soul. "Please," her voice cracked like glass. "Please, take them off." The words made no sense. Samuel's brows furrowed. Take what off? She shoved the sack forward, her hands shaking. The storm howled louder, as if urging him to decide. Against every instinct, he took it. The weight was wrong, too soft, too heavy, too alive. When he opened the sack, his breath caught. 2 small faces stared back at him, pale and trembling, eyes wide with silent terror. Children. Confusion tore through him. Who was this woman? Why had she brought them here? And what in God's name was she running from? Before Samuel could speak, thunder cracked across the sky, and in that instant he realized something terrible. Whatever she had brought to his door, it wasn't just children. It was danger. Before we dive into the story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we've got an extra special story waiting for you. One that'll touch your heart and blow your mind. Don't miss it. For a long, breathless moment, Samuel could not move. The lantern light flickered across the children's frightened faces, their small hands clutching the rough fabric of the sack as if the world outside were too cruel to touch. One was a girl, no more than 6. The other, a boy, maybe 8. Their eyes, wide, glassy, unblinking, cut straight through him. "What in God's name is this?" Samuel's voice broke the silence, low and thunderous. He looked up at the woman, rainwater still dripping from her hair, her lips trembling. "They're not safe out there," she whispered. You have to hide them." Samuel's chest tightened. Hide them? From who? His hand clenched around the lantern, knuckles white. "Lady, you don't just drop children on a man's doorstep in the middle of a storm. Start talking, now." Her gaze darted to the open barn doors, to the night beyond. The storm's roar seemed to swallow her words before she spoke. "If they find us here, they'll kill them. And you." Samuel's stomach turned to stone. He wanted to demand answers, to throw the sack back in her arms and send her away. But the boy's shivering shoulders, the girl's tear-streaked cheeks, he couldn't ignore them. Before he could decide, a sound carried through the storm. Hooves. Slow, heavy, approaching the ranch. Samuel's heart pounded. Whoever was out there wasn't coming for shelter. They were hunting. Samuel blew out the lantern, plunging the barn into shadows. Only the storm's flicker of lightning lit their faces. Hers pale, desperate, the children curled up like cornered animals. The hooves grew louder, steady, deliberate, as though whoever rode out there wanted to be heard. "Talk!" Samuel hissed, his voice sharp as a knife. "You don't bring children in a sack to a man's ranch unless the devil's on your heels. Who are you? What's after you?" The woman's lips quivered, her chest heaving as she clutched the children close. "Names don't matter. Not now. All that matters is that you keep them safe." "Names damn well matter," Samuel snapped. "Because if I open that door and find trouble standing in my yard, I'll know whether to face it, or hand you over to it." Her eyes glistened, defiant and broken all at once. "If you hand me over, they'll never stop. Not until the children are dead." The words struck him like a whip. He stared at her, searching her face, trying to separate truth from madness. Every instinct told him this was danger he hadn't asked for. But the sight of the girl clinging to her brother's sleeve twisted something deep in his chest. The hooves slowed, then stopped just beyond the barn. Silence, heavier than the storm itself, settled in. Samuel reached for the rifle leaning against the wall. His jaw tightened. Whoever was out there had come for answers. And God help them all if they didn't like what they found. The barn door creaked as a gust of wind shoved against it, carrying the smell of wet earth and horses. Samuel raised the rifle, his finger brushing the trigger. Then came a voice, calm but edged with suspicion. "Evenin', Hayes." "Storm's mighty fierce. Funny time to find your barn lit." Samuel's chest tightened. Marshall Reed. Of all the damn nights. He shot a glance at the woman. Her face drained of color. She pressed the children deeper into the shadows. Fear clung to her like the rain on her skin. Samuel steadied his voice. "Marshall, Storm's keeping me awake, that's all." Bootsteps crunched outside. Reed wasn't buying it. "Mind if I step in?" Some riders passed through town earlier, asking questions. Said they were looking for a woman. And children. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Isa's face for just a heartbeat. Eyes wide, breath caught. Samuel saw it, and so did Reed. "Who's in there with you, Hayes?" the marshal asked, his tone sharper now. Samuel's grip on the rifle tightened. 100 choices flashed in his mind. Turn her in. Protect her. Demand the truth before this spiraled further. But then the little girl whimpered, barely a sound, yet enough to slice the silence open. Reed's voice dropped low, dangerous. "Open the door, Hayes." Now Samuel's pulse thundered. One move could brand him either protector or traitor, and whichever path he chose, there would be no turning back. Samuel barred the barn door with a shaky hand, the echo of Marshall Reed's demands still rattling in his skull. The lawman's footsteps lingered a moment longer outside, then faded into the storm. Reed wasn't gone, not truly. Samuel knew the marshal well enough to understand he'd circle back, watching, waiting. Behind him, the children huddled together, their small shoulders trembling. Isa knelt beside them, whispering soft comforts, though her own hands shook. Samuel couldn't look at them without feeling the weight of his own ghosts pressing down. His late wife's face flickered in memory, the softness of her laugh, the way the house had felt warm when she was alive. But her death had hollowed him, left him with silence too deep to fill. These children, this woman, they dragged all that grief back into the light, reminding him of the family he'd lost, and the family he never dared hope for again. He gritted his teeth. "You need to tell me what I'm risking here," he muttered, voice low. "A man doesn't lie to the marshal unless he's got reason. And right now, my only reason's sitting in front of me with tears in their eyes." Isa's gaze rose to meet his. In her expression, he saw both steel and sorrow. "If I tell you everything, you'll wish I hadn't," she whispered. Thunder cracked, rattling the barn walls. Samuel's jaw hardened. He didn't know if he feared her truth more than the silence, but either way, he was already in too deep to walk away. By morning, the storm had rolled east, leaving Bitter Creek washed clean but restless. Samuel rode into town for supplies, hoping his silence the night before hadn't already betrayed him. But in a town like Bitter Creek, secrets traveled faster than the wind. He tied his horse outside the mercantile, and the hush fell almost instantly. Two men by the hitching post paused mid-conversation, eyes cutting toward him. A woman carrying flour leaned to whisper behind her hand. Samuel felt the weight of it pressing on his back, the whispers, the suspicion. "Samuel Hayes," a familiar voice called. Martha Green shuffled toward him, her cane tapping against the dusty boards. Wrinkled, sharp-eyed, and steady as the mountains, Martha had known him since he was a boy. She wasted no time. "They say you had company last night," she said, her tone quiet but firm. "A woman. And little ones." Samuel's jaw tightened. Town's got more imagination than sense. Martha's eyes narrowed. "Don't play me for a fool, boy. You've got the look of a man carrying more than feed sacks in that wagon. And if Marshall Reed's sniffing around, then danger's not far behind." Samuel exhaled, gaze shifting to the mountains. "Maybe I owe her a chance. Or maybe she'll drag you under with her secrets," Martha warned. Then, softer, I've seen loss break a man, Samuel. Don't mistake sorrow for salvation. Her words clung to him as he rode out of town. The gossip had teeth now, and somewhere beyond the horizon, he knew the riders who hunted Issa were closing in. The evening sun dipped low, bleeding red across the horizon as Samuel rode back toward the ranch. The air carried a strange stillness, the kind that prickled the skin before trouble came. His horse snorted, ears twitching at something unseen. From the ridge above the creek bed, Samuel spotted them. 3 riders, dark against the fading sky. They weren't moving fast, but slow, deliberate, watching the valley, watching his ranch. His stomach sank. They weren't locals. No man from Bitter Creek sat a horse like that, rigid and hungry, like wolves scenting blood. By the time Samuel reached the barn, Issa was waiting. The children clung to her skirts, their eyes wide with questions they dared not speak. He slid from the saddle, jaw set, hands trembling with the urge to grip his rifle. "You've got shadows on your tail," he said flatly. 3 riders. "They're not here for cattle." Issa's face drained of color. She pulled the children closer, her breath shallow. "They found us," she whispered. "God help us. They found us." Samuel's patience snapped. "Enough riddles. You tell me what those men want, or I'll march you to read myself." Her eyes burned with a mix of fear and defiance. "If you hand me over, they'll take the children. And when they do, you'll hear their screams haunt this valley for the rest of your life." The words cut deep. Samuel glanced toward the ridge again, heart pounding. The riders hadn't moved, but he knew they would. Soon. The hunt had come to Bitter Creek. Night fell heavy over Bitter Creek, and Samuel sat at the kitchen table, rifle laid across his knees, ears straining for every sound beyond the walls. The riders hadn't come down from the ridge, but their silence was worse than an attack. It meant they were patient. Waiting. Across from him, Issa cradled a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Her hands shook too badly to drink. The children slept in the loft above, their soft breaths the only fragile piece in the house. Samuel studied her, the lantern's glow catching the tired lines in her face. She wasn't fragile the way he first thought. No, this woman was carved from fire and grief, carrying burdens heavier than any ranch hand's load. "Why me?" he asked finally, his voice rough. "Out of every soul in Montana, why bring them here?" Her eyes lifted, glistening. "Because you're the only man left who still believes in protecting what's right, even if it costs you everything." The words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. His throat tightened. He thought of his wife, buried beneath the cottonwoods, of nights spent staring at an empty chair across this very table. He had sworn never to open his heart again. Yet here sat this stranger, breaking through defenses he thought unshakable. Issa's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't deserve your help, Samuel. But they do. Those children. They deserve a chance." Samuel's chest ached. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just fighting to shield her secrets. He was fighting against the walls he'd built around his own broken heart. The wind clawed at the windows as if trying to tear the house apart. Samuel leaned forward, his voice low, steady, but demanding. "No more running. No more half-words. If I'm to risk my life, and theirs, I need the truth, Isaiah. Every damn piece of it." For a long time she sat in silence, her fingers knotted tightly around the edge of her shawl. Then, with a trembling breath, she spoke. "They're not my children," she whispered. "They're my sisters." Her eyes shimmered, breaking as she forced the words out. "She married into the Marlowe family. A name you don't say lightly, not in Montana. Her husband, my brother-in-law, he treated her like property. When she died last winter, he turned on the children, said they were his ticket to power, to money, to whatever twisted future he imagined." Samuel's fists clenched. "So you stole them?" "I saved them," Issa shot back, her voice fierce. "He would have sold them off like cattle, Samuel. Used them as bargaining chips. I couldn't stand by. Samuel's chest tightened. The children's innocent faces flashed before him. The boy's quiet courage, the girl's fragile clinging to her brother's arm. He understood now. The weight of the sack, the terror in Isa's eyes. Her voice broke. If the Marlowes find us, they won't just take the children back. They'll kill anyone who stood in their way, including you. Samuel met her gaze, fire in his own. Then let him try. Outside, the howl of the wind masked the sound of horses gathering closer. The storm was no longer just weather. It was war on the horizon. The night shattered with the thunder of hooves. Samuel was on his feet before the children stirred, his rifle already in hand. Lantern light flickered against the windows as shadows swarmed across the yard. 10, maybe 12 riders, their torches flaring like demons come to claim souls. Isa clutched the children to her chest, her face pale. "It's them," she breathed. Samuel's voice cut like steel. "Take them to the cellar. Don't come out until I call." "But Samuel—" "Do it!" he barked, his eyes never leaving the door. Isa hesitated only a second before dragging the children below, the trapdoor slamming shut just as fists pounded on the front porch. "Open up, rancher," a voice snarled outside. "You've got something of ours. Hand over the brats and maybe we'll let you keep breathing." Samuel cocked the rifle, his jaw set. "You want them? You'll walk through me first." Laughter erupted outside, cruel and sharp. Then the first shot cracked, splintering the doorframe. The ranch erupted in gunfire. Samuel fired back, each shot measured, each impact sending riders scattering into the dark. But they kept coming, circling the house, torches hurled against the barn until flames licked the sky. Bullets ripped through the walls, one grazing Samuel's shoulder. He gritted his teeth, refusing to cry out. His mind burned with one thought: keep them safe. Through the smoke and shouting, a shadow loomed in the doorway, tall, broad, eyes gleaming with malice. It wasn't just any rider. It was Ezekiel Marlowe himself. "Evening, rancher," he drawled. "Step aside. Those children are mine." Samuel raised his rifle, blood dripping from his sleeve. His voice was a growl. "Over my dead body." Gunfire rattled the ranch like thunder, but inside, the world shrank to two men. Samuel leveled his rifle, finger tight on the trigger. Ezekiel Marlowe grinned through the smoke, as if the flames outside were his throne. "You think you're some hero?" Ezekiel sneered, stepping forward, revolver gleaming. "You're nothing but a broken widower on borrowed time. Those children are mine, always were." Samuel's chest heaved, sweat and blood mixing down his arm. "They're not yours. Not now. Not ever." The crack of shots filled the room. Wood splintered, glass shattered. Samuel dove, rolling behind the table as Ezekiel's bullets ripped through it. He returned fire, grazing Ezekiel's side, but the outlaw only laughed, clutching the wound like it was a badge of honor. From the cellar, Isa heard every shot. The children clung to her, their cries muffled in her skirt. She couldn't bear it anymore. With trembling hands, she shoved the trapdoor open and slipped into the firelit room. "Isa, no!" Samuel roared, his eyes wide. But Ezekiel had already turned. "Well, look who decided to crawl out," Ezekiel smirked, raising his revolver toward her. The little thief herself. Isa's breath caught. She stepped forward, her voice breaking but strong. "If it's me you want, then take me. Just leave them. Leave the children." Samuel surged to his feet, fury blazing. "No!" He hurled himself at Ezekiel just as the gun went off. The blast rang like judgment, filling the house with smoke and the smell of powder. For a heartbeat, time froze. Ezekiel staggered back, blood spreading across his chest. But Samuel, too, sank to his knees, clutching his side, his breath ragged and shallow. Isa screamed his name, rushing forward, as the children's terrified faces appeared in the stairwell. The war was not yet over, but one man's sacrifice had just changed everything. The first rays of sunlight pierced the smoke-stained barn, illuminating the wreckage of what had been a battlefield. Samuel leaned against the splintered wall, chest heaving, a crimson stain spreading across his shirt. Pain shot through him, but alive was alive, and that mattered. Issa knelt beside him, trembling, hands pressed to his wound. You're going to be okay, she whispered, though her voice quivered. The children, Lily and Thomas, peeked from behind her skirts, their small eyes wide, unafraid now because of Samuel's courage. He coughed, a harsh, ragged sound, but managed a weak grin. Guess I still have work to do. Outside, the horses of the Marlows had vanished into the morning fog. Ezekiel's shadow no longer darkened the ranch, but the memory of the violence lingered like smoke, refusing to leave. Samuel knew they'd be back if he ever let his guard down. But for now, the threat had passed. Issa looked up at him, sunlight catching the tears on her cheeks. Thank you. For everything. No, Samuel said, voice hoarse but steady. Thank you. For showing me there's still something worth fighting for. The children ran forward, laughter breaking the tension as Samuel lifted them into his arms, one after the other. Issa joined them, her hand brushing against his, a silent promise that love could survive even in the shadow of sorrow. Bitter Creek's plains stretched out, calm for the first time in weeks. A new day had dawned, carrying with it hope, heartbreak, and the quiet certainty that they had survived the storm. Together. And somewhere deep in Samuel's chest, a small ember of something long thought dead, love, began to glow again. Love, suspense, and heartbreak collide in the Wild West. Even in the harshest times, love endures. Subscribe to Wild West Eternal Love and never miss a story of passion and courage.